Sarah's mental notepad opens. First violation, minor but indicative. She nods, doesn't comment, just files it away. Through the open cockpit door, she can hear Derek on his phone. Personal call, loud enough to hear. "Yeah, babe, I'll be in Miami by 6. We can hit that rooftop bar
Enough.
you like.
Stick to the
I'm
protocol."
flying, so I can't
But sir,
drink
the
now,
readings are
but
off.
I
he
said
laughs.
drop it.
I mean,
Yes,
technically,
Captain.
we're supposed to be off all alcohol 12 hours before flying, but one beer last night isn't going to kill anyone. Sarah's jaw tightens. FAR 91.17. 8 hours bottle to throttle minimum. 12 hours is airline policy. He just admitted to violating it. She keeps her face neutral, professional. But inside, she's already writing the report, already building the case. Boarding begins. Passengers file in, business travelers, families, college students heading to spring break, everyone trusting that the people in charge know what they're doing, trusting that rules are being followed, trusting that their lives matter more than a pilot's convenience. Sarah helps passengers with bags, answers questions, maintains her cover, but she's watching, always watching. She sees Derek finally emerge from the cockpit. He's supposed to do a walkthrough of the cabin before departure, check for suspicious items, assess passenger behavior. Standard security protocol post 9/11, he doesn't. Just glances down the aisle from the cockpit door, waves casually at Kelly. "We're good to close up." Second violation, Sarah makes a mental note. Her memory is precise, timestamps forming automatically. 3:12 p.m. Captain skips required security walkthrough. The boarding door closes. The gate agent confirms the passenger count through the intercom. 180 passengers. Full flight. Sarah takes her jump seat in the forward galley, buckles in. The other flight attendants do the same. They're nervous, young. One of them is on her second flight ever. Sarah remembers being that young, that idealistic. Before she saw how the industry really works. The cockpit door is open. She can hear the checklists, or rather, the absence of proper checklists. Derek is rushing. Kelly is trying to keep up. "Before start checklist," Kelly begins. Yeah, all done," Derek interrupts. "Parking brake set, flaps, fuel pumps, all good. Let's get this show on the road." "Sir, we should go through the items." "Kelly, I've been flying 737s since you were in middle school. I know this aircraft better than Boeing does. We're already running 12 minutes late because of that slow boarding. Let's push." Kelly hesitates. Sarah can see it in her body language through the open cockpit door. The first officer wants to protest, wants to follow procedure. But you don't argue with the captain, not when you're 26 years old and trying to build a career, not when the captain has the power to write you up, to ruin your reputation, to make sure you never upgrade to captain yourself. So Kelly stays silent, and Derek pushes the button for pushback clearance. Third violation, incomplete checklist. Sarah's mind is recording everything. She can hear Kelly's reluctance, can see Derek's dismissiveness. This is what the FAA needs to see, not a single catastrophic failure, but a pattern, a culture, an attitude that says rules don't matter. The aircraft pushes back from the gate, the engines start, the familiar whine of CFM56 turbines spooling up. Derek is on the radio with ground control, professional tone, by-the-book communication because he knows that radio calls are recorded. It's the stuff that isn't recorded that reveals character. The aircraft taxis toward runway 13. Sarah watches through the galley window. She's not nervous. She's flown thousands of flights. She knows that most flights are safe despite some pilots, not because of them. The Boeing 737 is one of the most reliable aircraft ever built. The systems have redundancy on redundancy. It takes a lot of mistakes to cause an actual accident, but it only takes one mistake to kill people. And every accident investigation starts the same way. A series of small violations, a chain of events, each one survivable alone, but together fatal. But the real test was yet to come. The aircraft reaches the runway. Ground control hands them off to tower. Flight 203 cleared for takeoff, runway 13. Derek doesn't respond to the clearance correctly. The proper response is to read back the entire clearance. Flight 203 cleared for takeoff, runway 13. Instead, he just keys the mic and says, "Rolling tower, Fourth violation, minor but sloppy. Sarah notes it. Kelly glances at Derek but doesn't correct him. Young first officers learn quickly. Don't embarrass the captain on the radio. The engines spool up. The aircraft accelerates. Sarah feels the familiar push of takeoff thrust. V1, rotate, the nose lifts. Positive rate, gear up. The 737 climbs into the afternoon sky over New York. The city spreads below. Manhattan, Queens, Long Island Sound. At 10,000 feet, the seatbelt sign should stay on until they're clear of departure traffic. It's an FAA recommendation. Most airlines have it as policy, but Derek clicks it off at 8,000 feet. Passengers immediately start getting up, going to the bathroom, opening overhead bins. Sarah sees a toddler nearly fall as his mother unbuckles him too early and the aircraft hits a bump. She walks to the cockpit, knocks gently. Derek glances back. His eyes scan her. Not professionally, not respectfully, the way some men look at women, assessing, judging, objectifying. Yes? His tone is dismissive, annoyed at the interruption. Captain, I noticed the seatbelt sign went off early. We're still in departure climb and there's been some turbulence. Should I ask passengers to remain seated? Derek leans back in his seat, turns to face her fully. There's that smile. That condescending smile that men perfect when they're about to explain something to a woman they think is beneath them. Let me explain something to you, sweetheart. I've been flying for 11 years, 8,000 hours. I know when it's safe to turn off the seatbelt sign. Your job is to serve drinks and hand out pretzels. My job is to fly this airplane. You're here to serve, not to think. Know your place. The words hang in the air. Kelly winces. The other flight attendants, hearing this from the galley, go quiet. Sarah feels it. That familiar feeling, anger, frustration, the urge to reveal herself right here, right now, to watch his face change when he realizes who she really is. But that's not protocol. Undercover means undercover, stay hidden. Let them reveal themselves completely. Let the rope out and watch them hang themselves with it. Understood, Captain, Sarah says quietly. Her voice is calm, professional, perfect. Just wanted to confirm. Confirmed. Now, unless we're actually on fire, please don't interrupt the cockpit during critical phases of flight. He turns back around. Dismissal complete. Sarah returns to the galley. Her face is neutral, but behind her eyes, the machinery is working, building the case, document, observe. Let him keep digging, because Captain Derek Harrison doesn't know it yet, but he just insulted a federal inspector. And that condescending smile, that dismissive tone, that's all going in the report, word for word. Witness statements from Kelly and the other flight attendants. Time stamped, recorded in perfect detail, because here's what Derek doesn't understand. The FAA doesn't just care about technical violations, they care about attitudes, about cultures, about pilots who create environments where crew members are afraid to speak up. Because that's how accidents happen. That's how people die. And Sarah Chen has seen enough. But this flight is just beginning. And men like Derek Harrison, they never stop at one violation. They never stop at one moment of arrogance. They keep going, keep pushing, keep revealing exactly who they are. And Sarah will be there, watching, recording, waiting for the moment when everything comes together, when the weight of evidence becomes undeniable, when Captain Derek Harrison learns the most expensive lesson of his life. You're always being watched. Always. And the quiet woman you dismissed as just a servant, she might be the person who holds your entire career in her hands. Every airline captain knows one fundamental truth. You're always being watched. By passengers, by crew, by cameras, by systems. Captain Derek Harrison forgot that truth. And today, on Flight 203 from New York to Miami, the flight attendant he just called a servant who should know her place isn't serving drinks, she's serving justice. Because Sarah Chen isn't just a flight attendant, she's a Federal Aviation Administration safety inspector working undercover. And every word he says, every rule he breaks is going straight into a federal report that will end his career. It's 2:47 p.m. LaGuardia Airport, gate C-14. The Boeing 737-800 sits at the gate, ground crew loading the last bags into the cargo hold. Flight 203 to Miami, a routine domestic flight, 2.5 hours, the kind of flight pilots like Derek Harrison can do in their sleep. And lately, that's exactly what he's been doing. Not literally sleeping, but going through the motions, cutting corners, taking shortcuts, because after 11 years of flying, after 8,000 hours in the left seat, he knows what matters and what doesn't. Or so he thinks. Sarah Chen adjusts her uniform in the crew room mirror. Navy blazer, white shirt, silver wings pinned above her name tag. She looks exactly like every other flight attendant preparing for an afternoon flight. Mid-30s, professional, unremarkable. That's the point. The FAA's undercover inspector program depends on invisibility. Blend in, observe, document. Don't intervene unless there's immediate danger. Just watch and record. She's been doing this for 3 years, 22 airlines, 47 flights. She's seen it all. Drunk pilots, falsified maintenance logs, crew members watching movies during critical phases of flight, sexual harassment, racism, safety violations that would make passengers never fly again if they knew. Most pilots are good, dedicated, professional, but some think the rules don't apply to them. Some think experience means they know better than regulations written in blood. Captain Derek Harrison is one of those pilots. The FAA has received 3 anonymous complaints about him in the past 6 months. Nothing catastrophic, nothing that caused an accident, just patterns. Skipping checklist items, rushing through pre-flight procedures, being dismissive to crew members who raise concerns, treating safety protocols like suggestions rather than requirements. That's why Sarah is here, to see if the complaints are real, to document, to protect the flying public from pilots who think they're above the rules. She's never met Derek before, doesn't know what he looks like. That's standard protocol. Blind assignment, no bias, no preconceptions, just observation. She picks up her bag, walks to the gate, meets the rest of the crew. 2 other flight attendants, both younger, both genuinely new to the job. They don't know Sarah's real identity. No one does. As far as they're concerned, she's just another crew member. Experienced, but normal. The crew enters the aircraft. Sarah does her cabin check, emergency equipment, life vests, oxygen bottles, fire extinguishers. Everything is where it should be. The aircraft is clean, well-maintained. The airline is good. It's not the airline that's the problem. It's individual pilots who think rules are optional. Captain Derek Harrison boards through the jet bridge. 6'1", athletic build, perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive watch, designer sunglasses hanging from his collar. He walks with that swagger, that confidence that crosses into arrogance. 42 years old, divorced, drives a Porsche. His Instagram is full of cockpit selfies and inspirational quotes about living your best life. He doesn't acknowledge the flight attendants as he passes, doesn't make eye contact, just walks straight to the cockpit. His first officer, a young woman named Kelly Martinez, is already there running the preliminary checks. She's good, thorough, fresh out of flight training, still believes in doing everything by the book. Sarah positions herself near the galley, close enough to observe, far enough to remain unnoticed. She has a small notebook in her pocket, a pen, but she won't take it out yet. Too obvious. Everything goes into her memory first. She's trained to remember details, times, exact quotes, sequence of events. The pre-flight briefing happens in the galley. Standard procedure. Kelly comes back to brief the cabin crew about the flight. Weather looks good. Flight time is 2 hours and 23 minutes. No special passengers, no unaccompanied minors. Straightforward flight. "Where's the captain?" Sarah asks. Standard question. The captain should be part of this briefing. That's the regulation. FAR 121.542. Pre-flight briefing with all crew members. "Oh, he doesn't usually do the cabin briefing," Kelly says, slightly embarrassed. "He says it's the first officer's job. Saves time." Sarah closes the door, walks back to 14C. Reassures the passenger again he's fine now, trusts her, but she's documented everything. The dismissiveness, the refusal to address a passenger concern, the tone, the attitude. All of it matters, all of it paints a picture. 40 minutes into the flight, turbulence begins, light at first, just a few bumps. The seatbelt sign should go on. That's standard procedure. Any turbulence, even light, requires the seatbelt sign. But Derek doesn't turn it on. Sarah can see the aircraft rattling slightly, passengers looking around nervously. One woman grabs the armrest. She calls the cockpit on the intercom. "Captain, We're experiencing turbulence in the cabin. Should we turn on the seatbelt sign? It's light chop. No need. We'll be through it in a few minutes. Sir, there are passengers who... I can feel the turbulence, thank you. I'm the one flying the plane. If I thought it required the seatbelt sign, it would be on. Stop micromanaging from the cabin. He hangs up. Sarah stares at the intercom. The turbulence continues, gets slightly worse. A laptop falls from an open tray table. A passenger yelps. Still no seatbelt sign. This is beyond poor judgment now. This is deliberate negligence. This is a captain who would rather be right than safe, who would rather maintain his authority than protect his passengers. 8th violation. Failure to illuminate seatbelt sign during turbulence. The turbulence passes after 5 minutes. Nobody was hurt this time, but that's not how safety works. Safety isn't about whether something bad happened. It's about whether something bad could have happened. It's about preventing accidents, not just surviving them. Sarah is building an ironclad case. Every violation documented with exact times, every dismissive comment memorized word for word, every breach of protocol witnessed by other crew members who can corroborate. This isn't a subjective evaluation. This is objective, measurable, undeniable, but Derek keeps going. Because men like Derek always keep going. They can't help themselves. 1 hour into the flight, Kelly needs to use the lavatory. Standard procedure requires the cockpit door to remain secured when only one pilot is inside. A flight attendant is supposed to stand guard outside. Sarah volunteers. She positions herself in the galley watching the cockpit door. Kelly exits. The door should lock behind her. Click. Secure, protected. It doesn't lock. Derek left it ajar on purpose. It's just 2 minutes, he calls out to Kelly. No need for the whole security theater. Security theater, that's what he calls post 9/11 protocols, rules written after 3,000 people died. Sarah feels her jaw tighten, but she stays silent, observes, records. Kelly uses the lavatory, returns quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the open door. She slips back inside. Derek doesn't even look up from his tablet. He's watching a movie during flight, while he's the only pilot in the cockpit, while he should be monitoring instruments, watching for traffic, staying alert. 9th violation, cockpit door security breach. 10th violation, personal electronic device use inappropriate for phase of flight. What would you do if you realized the pilot wasn't paying attention? Sarah has seen enough, more than enough, but protocol dictates she complete the flight, document everything. No intervention unless there's immediate danger. And technically, the aircraft is flying fine, the autopilot is engaged, the systems are working, the 737 is doing what it's designed to do, fly itself with minimal human input, but airplanes don't crash because of mechanical failure anymore. Not usually. Modern aircraft are too reliable. They crash because of human failure, because pilots make bad decisions, because cultures of complacency take root, because someone like Derek Harrison gets away with cutting corners for so long that corners become his normal. The flight continues. Miami appears on the horizon. The descent begins. Air traffic control vectors them toward Miami International. The approach should be professional, textbook. But Sarah is watching, always watching. Derek doesn't brief the approach. Kelly pulls up the approach plate on her display, reviews it silently. Derek doesn't. He's done this approach hundreds of times, knows it by memory. Why waste time briefing something you already know? Because briefings catch errors. Because verbalization creates shared understanding. Because 2 people reviewing the same information is safer than 1 person assuming they remember correctly. That's why the regulation exists. That's why every airline has standard operating procedures that require approach briefings. 11th violation, no approach briefing. The landing is smooth. Derek's hands are skilled, whatever his attitude. The 737 touches down gently on runway 9. Reverse thrust, braking, exit the runway, taxi to the gate. Another flight completed. Another 180 passengers delivered safely. In the galley, Sarah begins securing the cabin. The other flight attendants are quiet. One of them, the young one on her second flight, looks at Sarah. "Is it always like that?" she whispers. "The captain being so dismissive?" Sarah meets her eyes, wants to tell her no, wants to tell her most captains are professional, most crews work together respectfully, but she also knows this young woman just witnessed what toxic cockpit culture looks like, just saw how hierarchy can silence voices, just learned that speaking up has consequences. Not always, Sarah says carefully, but when it is, it's important to remember what you saw. Remember how it made you feel, because someday you might be in a position to change it. The aircraft parks at the gate. The seatbelt sign goes off. Passengers stand, gather bags, file out, thanking the crew, smiling, unaware that their captain violated 11 different regulations on a single 2-hour flight, unaware that they were never in immediate danger, but were definitely less safe than they should have been, unaware that the polite flight attendant saying goodbye is actually a federal inspector who just witnessed a career-ending performance. Derek exits the cockpit first, swagger intact, confidence unshaken. He walks past Sarah without acknowledgement, heads toward the jet bridge, probably thinking about that rooftop bar, that date, that beer he shouldn't have before his next flight tomorrow. Probably already forgotten about the flight attendant he dismissed, the servant who should know her place. Kelly exits last, makes eye contact with Sarah. There's something in that look, gratitude, relief, recognition that someone saw what happened. The first officer can't say anything, not here, not now, but Sarah understands. Safe travels, Sarah says quietly. You too, Kelly whispers, then even quieter, thank you. For what? For witnessing? For being there? For validating that what Kelly experienced was wrong? Sarah doesn't ask, just nods. The cabin is empty now, just Sarah and the other flight attendants. They finish the securing procedures, check the lavatories, pick up trash, the routine post-flight duties. But Sarah has one more duty, one more responsibility. She walks off the aircraft, through the jet bridge into the terminal, finds a quiet corner near gate D7, pulls out her phone, opens a secure app, the FAA's internal inspector reporting system. Her fingers move quickly, confidently. 11 violations, exact times, specific regulations cited, witness statements available from First Officer Martinez and flight attendants, detailed narrative of captain's dismissive attitude towards safety concerns and crew member input. The report is damning, comprehensive, undeniable. She hits submit, the file uploads, encrypted, secure, landing on a desk in the FAA's Flight Standards District Office, creating an automatic investigation flag, triggering a review process that will pull the cockpit voice recorder, review the flight data recorder, interview the crew, build an official case. Things were about to get much worse for Captain Derek Harrison because in approximately 48 hours, he'll receive a letter, a formal notification. The FAA wants to interview him regarding Flight 203, safety violations, potential certificate action, and the flight attendant he called just a servant. She'll be the one asking questions, presenting evidence, explaining exactly how 11 regulations were violated in 143 minutes. And Derek will finally understand, finally learn, finally realize that arrogance has a price, that disrespect has consequences, that the person you dismiss might be the person who holds your entire future in their hands, but that reckoning is still 2 days away. Right now, Derek Harrison is at a rooftop bar in South Beach, drinking his beer, laughing with his date, living his best life, completely unaware that his career just ended at 35,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean, completely unaware that justice doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it watches, records, waits, and then strikes with the full weight of federal authority. At 18,000 feet, cruising altitude established, the flight settles into routine. The seatbelt sign is off. Passengers are reading, sleeping, scrolling through phones. The beverage service begins. Sarah pushes the cart down the aisle with another flight attendant. Coffee, soda, tomato juice, the familiar rhythm of domestic service. Smile, pour, move on, smile, pour, move on. But her mind is elsewhere, calculating, recording. She's already documented 4 violations in the first 20 minutes of flight. That's more than most pilots commit in a month, more than most pilots commit in a year. Derek Harrison is either incredibly careless or incredibly confident, probably both. In the cockpit, Derek has his shoes off, his feet are propped up on the lower instrument panel. Not technically a violation, but unprofessional, sloppy. Kelly is handling the radio communications, handling the flight management system updates, doing all the actual work while Derek scrolls through his phone. Again, not technically illegal at cruise altitude, but it shows a pattern, an attitude. Sarah finishes the beverage service, returns to the forward galley. She can hear Derek through the cockpit door. It's still open. Another violation. Post 9/11 regulations require the cockpit door to be closed and locked during flight except for necessary crew entry. Some pilots leave it cracked open anyway, claiming better communication with the cabin, better awareness. But regulations are regulations. They exist for reasons written in blood. She makes a mental note. Time: 3:47 p.m. Cockpit door open during cruise flight. 5th violation. Then she hears something that makes her blood run cold. Kelly, I'm starving. Did you grab that sandwich from the crew meal? Derek's voice, casual, normal. Yes, sir, but we're not supposed to eat in the cockpit during... During what? We're at cruise altitude, autopilot engaged, nothing's happening. Hand me that sandwich. Sarah moves closer to the cockpit door, listens carefully. She hears the rustle of plastic wrap, the sound of eating. Derek is having his crew meal in the cockpit. That's not just unprofessional. That's specifically prohibited by FAR 121.543. Flight crew members cannot eat in the cockpit during critical phases of flight. And while cruise seems safe, regulations define critical phases broadly for good reason: choking, distraction, incapacitation, but more importantly, both pilots are eating at the same time. That's the bigger violation. FAR 121.549. Flight crew members must eat at different times to ensure at least one pilot is always fully capable of taking control. If both pilots eat simultaneously and both get food poisoning, who flies the aircraft? 6th violation. 7th violation. Sarah's mental report is growing, and right then something unexpected happened. A call button chimes. Seat 14C. Sarah walks down the aisle. A middle-aged man is holding his hand up. He looks concerned. Excuse me, I hate to bother you, but I think something's wrong with the window. He points to the window seal. There's moisture, condensation forming on the inside of the inner pane. Not unusual at altitude, temperature differential, but this passenger doesn't know that. That's completely normal, sir, Sarah reassures him. It's just condensation from the temperature difference. The window's perfectly safe. Are you sure? Because I saw a documentary about that flight where the window blew out, and I'm absolutely sure. But I'll ask the captain to check it if you'd like. Would that make you feel better? The man nods, grateful, reassured. Sarah walks back to the cockpit, knocks. Standard procedure: when a passenger has a concern, you inform the flight deck, even if it's nothing, even if it's silly, because passenger anxiety can escalate, can create problems. Derek looks back, annoyed. There's mustard on his lip from the sandwich. What now? Captain, passenger in 14C is concerned about condensation on his window. I explained it's normal, but he's nervous. Just wanted to inform you. Derek rolls his eyes, doesn't get up. Doesn't even look interested. It's condensation. You already told him it's fine. Why are you bothering me? Standard protocol, sir. Passenger concerns should be communicated to... I swear, they need to update the training for you people. Not everything requires captain notification. Use your judgment. That's why we hire adults, right? He turns back to his sandwich. Close the door on your way out. Sarah stands there for 2 seconds. Kelly won't make eye contact. The first officer is deeply uncomfortable. She's witnessing her captain be dismissive, rude, and unprofessional, but she's powerless to stop it. That's the insidious part of airline hierarchy. First officers see things, know things, but they can't report without being labeled as troublemakers, without destroying their own careers. Violation 11, creating a hostile work environment and demonstrating attitude hazardous to flight safety. FAR 121.542 requires flight crew to ensure effective crew coordination and communication. Captain Harrison repeatedly dismissed cabin crew safety concerns using demeaning language. Quote, "You're here to serve, not to think. Know your place." This statement was witnessed by First Officer Martinez and documented by the reporting inspector. Derek's world is collapsing, but he still doesn't understand who. Which flight attendant? The young ones wouldn't know the regulations, wouldn't notice half of this, unless the door opens, a woman enters, navy blue suit, FAA credentials hanging from a lanyard, short dark hair, confident stride, professional demeanor. Derek stares at her, recognizes her. The flight attendant, the one from the galley, the one who called about the turbulence, the one he dismissed, the one he called Captain Harrison. I don't think we were properly introduced on Tuesday. Sarah Chen sits down, places her credentials on the table. I'm Special Agent Sarah Chen, FAA Aviation Safety Inspector. I was conducting an undercover compliance assessment on Flight 203. You told me to know my place. I did. My place is ensuring pilots follow federal regulations. Your place was to follow them. The room is silent. Derek's mouth is dry. He can't speak, can't process. The flight attendant wasn't a flight attendant. The woman he dismissed was federal law enforcement. The servant he insulted has the authority to end his career. Sarah opens her own folder, pulls out additional documentation. First Officer Martinez has provided a voluntary statement corroborating all violations. She was uncomfortable but felt unable to challenge your authority. The two cabin crew members have also provided statements. They describe a pattern of dismissiveness and unprofessionalism. Additionally, we've pulled your last 6 months of flight data. This isn't an isolated incident. You've had 14 other flights with similar patterns, rushed checklists, procedure deviations. The complaints we received were accurate. Linda takes over. Captain Harrison, based on the evidence, the FAA is issuing an emergency order of suspension for your airline transport pilot certificate, effective immediately. You are prohibited from exercising the privileges of any pilot certificate pending a formal hearing. The suspension will remain in place for a minimum of 120 days. After that period, you may petition for reinstatement, which will require a complete evaluation including psychological assessment, remedial training, and demonstration of understanding of crew resource management principles. Derek's hands are shaking. This is my career. This is my life. This is about 180 lives you were responsible for, Sarah says quietly, and you treated that responsibility like it was beneath you. You treated safety regulations like suggestions. You treated your crew like servants, and when someone tried to raise concerns, you told them to know their place. She stands, straightens her jacket. I've been doing this job for 3 years. I've flown with hundreds of pilots. Most of them are excellent, professional, respectful. They understand that flying is a team effort, that every crew member, regardless of rank, has valuable input. But occasionally, I encounter someone like you, someone who thinks the rules don't apply, someone who confuses confidence with competence. Sarah looks directly at Derek. You had 8,000 hours of experience, but experience without humility is just 8,000 hours of repeating the same mistakes. Today, those mistakes caught up with you. 3 months later, Kelly Martinez is upgrading to captain. She's young for the position, only 27, but the airline recognizes talent, recognizes someone who tried to do things right even when pressured not to. Her first command is a Boeing 737, the same aircraft Derek used to fly, but she flies it differently, by the book, with respect for procedures, with respect for crew. On her first flight as captain, she conducts the full crew briefing in person with the flight attendants. She asks for their input, values their observations, creates an environment where anyone can speak up because she remembers what it felt like when they couldn't. Derek Harrison is working as a flight dispatcher now. Ground job, decent pay, no cockpit, no stripes, no authority. He reapplied for his pilot certificate after 120 days, was denied. The FAA psychological evaluation found persistent pattern of authority resistance and inadequate safety culture internalization. In plain English, he still doesn't get it, still thinks he was treated unfairly, still thinks the rules were the problem, not his attitude. Maybe someday he'll understand. Maybe someday he'll realize that Sarah Chen didn't destroy his career. He destroyed it himself. Every time he skipped a checklist, every time he dismissed a concern, every time he chose convenience over safety, every time he forgot that being a captain isn't about authority, it's about responsibility. Sarah is still flying, still conducting undercover assessments, still watching, still protecting the flying public from pilots who forget why the rules exist. She doesn't enjoy ending careers, doesn't take satisfaction in suspensions, but she sleeps well at night knowing that somewhere a flight attendant can raise a safety concern without being told to know their place, knowing that a first officer can speak up without fear, knowing that passengers are a little bit safer because someone was watching. Because here's the final truth that Captain Derek Harrison learned too late. In aviation, there's no such thing as just a flight attendant. There's no such thing as just a first officer. There's no such thing as just a passenger. There are only people. People whose lives depend on everyone doing their job correctly. People who trust that the person in the left seat understands that trust is sacred. Derek forgot that, and forgetting it cost him everything. But Kelly Martinez remembers every single flight. Every single time she sits in that left seat, she remembers. She remembers the captain who thought he was above the rules, and she remembers the flight attendant who wasn't, who was watching, who was protecting, who proved that authority comes from competence, not from stripes on a shoulder. The sky is safer today because Sarah Chen was on Flight 203 because she knew her place, and her place was making sure arrogant pilots learn theirs. 2 days later, Thursday morning, 9:47 a.m., Captain Derek Harrison is in his apartment in Coral Gables, coffee in hand, scrolling through Instagram, posting a photo from the rooftop bar. Caption, "Living the dream at 35,000 feet and on the ground. Hashtag pilot life, hashtag Miami, hashtag no filter." His phone rings. Unknown number, Miami area code. He almost doesn't answer, probably spam, probably some telemarketer, but something makes him pick up. Captain Harrison, a woman's voice, professional official. Speaking, "This is Linda Morrison from the FAA Flight Standards District Office in Miami. I'm calling to inform you that we've received a formal safety report regarding Flight 203 on Tuesday, New York to Miami. We need you to come in for an interview regarding potential violations of federal aviation regulations." Derek's coffee mug pauses halfway to his lips. "I'm sorry, what?" "Multiple safety violations have been documented on Flight 203. 11 specific violations. We have witness statements, flight data recorder information, and cockpit voice recorder transcripts. We need your statement. Can you come to our office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? 11 violations? That's ridiculous. Who filed this complaint? Was it Kelly? Because if my first officer, the source of the report is confidential, Captain. But I can tell you it came from an authorized FAA inspector who was on the flight. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., 8495 NW 53rd Street, Building C. Please bring your pilot certificate and medical certificate." The line goes dead. Derek stares at his phone. An FAA inspector on his flight? Impossible. There were no inspectors on that flight. He would have known. He would have been notified. Unless... His mind races through the flight. The crew, 3 flight attendants, 2 were young, inexperienced. The third one, the one who asked about the wrong flight. The one who called about the window, about the turbulence. The one who, oh God, Derek's hands start shaking. An undercover inspector on his flight, watching everything, hearing everything, recording everything, every shortcut, every dismissive comment, every violation, the open cockpit door, the eating simultaneously, the no brief approach, the "you're here to serve, not to think" comment. He said that to a federal inspector. He called a federal inspector sweetheart. His career flashes before his eyes. 8,000 hours, 11 years, the job he loves, the salary, the lifestyle, the Porsche, the boat he can't actually afford, all of it built on that pilot certificate, that little piece of plastic that says he's qualified to carry passengers, that little piece of plastic that the FAA is about to take away. Friday, 10 a.m., FAA Flight Standards District Office. Derek sits in a small conference room, gray walls, fluorescent lighting, a table, 4 chairs. 2 FAA officials sit across from him, Linda Morrison, the woman who called, and another inspector named Robert Chen. No relation to Kelly, but Derek's paranoia makes him wonder, Captain Harrison, thank you for coming in, Linda begins. Her voice is professional, no emotion, just facts. We're going to review the violations documented on Flight 203. You have the right to have union representation present, but this is an informal interview, not a hearing. Do you want to proceed? Derek nods. He didn't call the union, didn't want to admit he might need them. Pride, always pride. Linda opens a folder, pulls out a detailed report, 15 pages. Derek can see his name at the top, flight number, date, aircraft registration, and a long list, numbered violations, each one with exact timestamps, exact quotes, exact regulation citations. Violation 1, Linda reads, FAR 121.542, failure to conduct required pre-flight briefing with all crew members. Time 3:12 p.m. First Officer Martinez was present. Cabin crew briefing conducted by First Officer only. Captain Harrison did not participate. Derek opens his mouth to respond, closes it. What can he say? She's right, he skipped it, saved 3 minutes, seemed harmless. Violation 2. FAR 91.17, Captain Harrison admitted on recorded cockpit voice recorder to consuming alcohol less than 12 hours before flight. Quote, 1 beer last night isn't going to kill anyone. Time 3:08 p.m. Derek's face goes pale. The CVR, of course. Everything in the cockpit is recorded. Every word, every sound, every piece of evidence perfectly preserved, Linda continues, methodically, precisely. Each violation laid out with devastating clarity. The incomplete checklists, the improper takeoff clearance read back, the early seatbelt sign termination, the open cockpit door during cruise, the simultaneous crew meal consumption, the dismissal of passenger concerns, the turbulence without seatbelt sign, the cockpit door security breach, the electronic device usage, the no approach briefing, and finally, the most damaging one.